That is such a rush. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sam Kirkland, and it is my great honor to serve as worship associate this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. Our minister, Reverend Christine Dance, is away from the pulpit this week, and our sermon will be given by UUCP member Blake Rushing. Blake went to seminary and worked as a minister for 10 years, and I'm excited to welcome her to our pulpit for the first time. A very special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything we do. A very special welcome to all of you joining us via Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook. Those of us in the room, can we turn around and wave to our folks online, remembering that we are one congregation no matter how we are participating together today. Join me as we recite our covenant, and I invite Blake to light our chalice. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Benji Messer, UUCP's music director, and I'm excited to welcome a guest artist to our service today, Bryn Parker, who performs under the name These Loud Thoughts. Bryn is a folk rock singer-songwriter who is trans and non-binary, and on today's service message of gender queerness, I just thought they would be perfect. They're starting today with a cover, Androgynous by The Replacements.
Here comes Dick, he's wearing a skirt. Here comes Jane, you know she's sporting a chain. Same hair, revolution, same build, evolution. Tomorrow who's gonna fuss? They love each other so, androgynous. Closer than you know, love each other so, androgynous. Don't get him wrong, and don't get him mad. He might be a father, but he sure ain't a dad. And she don't need advice that they send her. She's happy with the way she looks, yeah, she's happy with her gender. And they love each other so, androgynous. Closer than you know, love each other so, androgynous. Mirror image, see no damage, see no evil at all. Well, Cupid dolls and urine stalls will be laughed at the way you're laughed at now. Well, something meets boy and something meets girl. They both are the same, they're overjoyed in this world. Same hair, revolution, unisex evolution. Tomorrow who's gonna fuss? And tomorrow Dick is wearing pants, tomorrow Janie's wearing a dress. Future outcasts and they don't last. And today people dress the way that they please, the way they tried to in last centuries. And they love each other so androgynous, closer than you know, love each other so androgynous. Androgynous.
Thank you so much. Everything going on at UUCP can be found at our website, phoenixuu.org, and our weekly newsletter, Compass. Are you interested in participating in a nationally recognized children's ministry program? Want to learn more about why kids at UUCP seem so special, are so special? Join us for our annual orientation, August 29th at 6 p.m. on Zoom training, open to anyone who wants to know more about how they can be more for the kiddos of our congregation. Please complete the registration form so we know who and how many people to expect. Email Katie Resendez for registration form at katieresendez@phoenixuu.org. The teens at UUCP have undertaken an amazing project to make UUCP more accessible, and they need some gear to finish it out. Do you have an old iPhone or iPad you aren't using anymore? We need 2 or 3 devices and are hoping our community can help us out. Our Whole Lives is UUCP's amazing lifespan sexuality and health program. OWL helps participants make informed and responsible decisions about their relationships, sexual health, and behavior. It's been put on hold during the pandemic, and it's time to explore how our community can recommit to this important work. We need a vision, and we need you. On Monday, September the 19th at 6 p.m., there will be a meeting of volunteer coordinators, certified facilitators, class assistants, and families are all requested to attend. This is online and in person, or just online? Online and in person. Thank you. Stopping school voucher expansion is crucial. If you do not attend services in person, sign the petition at the Changing Hands bookstore near you this afternoon before 5 p.m. And I would invite you all to stop, take a deep breath, and look around our beautiful sanctuary at all of the wonderful artwork of our own members. Take a look at your leisure, and I'd like to thank Bill Snowden and our wonderful team for all that you do to improve our worship experience. Our offering is now a true share the plate every week. We split all undesignated funds from the offering 50-50 with a different organization each month, because we feel this approach better reflects our values. For August 2022, our Share the Plate partner is the Respite Services Program at Circle the City. This vital program offers recuperative respite care where people facing homelessness can rest, heal, and recover from a serious injury or illness, including burns from the hot summer streets. All respite care patients receive daily health care, mental health and substance abuse services, a bed, meals, and transportation to medical appointments. Pets are welcome and are provided care and supplies, such as those cute and very effective booties for walking on hot streets. Many of these services and supplies, for example, towels and pet supplies, are not reimbursable by government sources, so Circle the City relies on cash donations from the Phoenix community. To learn more, follow the link in the chat or see our website for more information. You can text UUCP STP to 73256. You can donate through the website or you can send a check. If you're paying your pledge to UUCP, please indicate that on your check. If you are here in person, this is a totally acceptable time to bust out your phone and text UUCP STP to 73256. There are also collection boxes at the entrance with QR codes to scan. Please put your money in there as you come in and as you go out, or vice versa. For all that you do, for all that you give to our congregation and our community partner, we are so grateful. Katie?
Good morning, folks. I want to remind you that you're welcome to move around. There's spaces down here, there's spaces wherever. You know, remember your bodies are supposed to be comfortable while you're doing this community thing, right? Okay. I'm Katie Resendez. I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. And I'm going to start by not paying attention to this person over here, although they are amazing. So this week, a lot of our community members started something new. We have a whole bunch of community members who started their first week of college. Some of them are nearby at ASU in Tempe. Some of them are not quite as near in Flagstaff, but some of them are in Pennsylvania. Some of them are overseas, all sorts of places. And a lot of these community members are people who grew up here in this congregation. Now, can you imagine coming here every Sunday, hanging out on Thursdays, all of those things, and then going to a new city and being like, my family's not here. I know how to do the school thing, but I want to be connected to something else. Or that feeling of people who think like me or people who know what this weird fire thing is. We have to connect ourselves to that bigger history, right? And that bigger community. And one of the coolest things about being Unitarian Universalist is that we are connected to a huge network of people who believe some really amazing stuff. And so this morning, I get to introduce you to one of my friends and someone who some of you know, who we are connected to because of our faith and because of our beliefs. Chatz. Is an amazing storyteller from Montreal who works out of the UU congregation there and is going to help us connect with some more of our history as we talk this morning.
All right, let's just tangle you up in the microphone here. All right, I'm gonna get a little bit of length here so I can wander around, not be stuck in the corner. All right, we're good. So let me introduce myself. My name is Chatz. My pronouns are they and them, and I have been the Director of Religious Exploration at the Unitarian Church of Montreal in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. This is my 8th year in that position, and I am also greatly honored to serve our religious educator colleagues as the president-elect of the Liberal Religious Educators Association. That one really hasn't sunk in yet. But I am going to spend the next 4 years serving our religious educator colleagues in our board of directors. But this morning, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you my favorite kind of story, actually, which is a biography of somebody really cool that I think you should know about that maybe you don't. And this one's especially fun for me to get to share with you because I'm sure that you guys all know lots of stories about historical folks that come from places like this, places across your whole country. But one of the things that I love about doing Unitarian Universalist religious service is that I get to share Canadian stories and international stories with lots of American colleagues. And it's always really new and exciting. They don't go, oh, I've heard that story already. No, mine are always new. Well, maybe some of you are going to know this one. You'll have to excuse my Post-it note. I want to make sure I get all the years right. So, I'm going to tell you the story of Dr. James Barry. Dr. James Barry was born in 1789 in England, and in 1812 entered medical school in Edinburgh. Having completed his course of study, he almost wasn't allowed to write his exit exams because everybody looked at him and said, hey, you're real short. You look real young. Your voice is real high. Are you sure you're not a teenage boy? I don't think teenage boys should be writing medical exit exams. Well, I mean, he'd gone to class. He could write the exam. They let him write the exam. And after he became a doctor, he joined the British military and became a British military doctor. He was posted in South Africa at the time, which was, of course, a British colony. And while he was serving in South Africa, the first thing that he did was make huge reforms to all of the medical practices and procedures that the British military was undertaking. He improved sanitation and care, both for soldiers, civilians, imprisoned people, and enslaved people. And he did it by being a nuisance. He was really a kind of person who was just really outspoken about all of this stuff. He realized that it was like the sensible thing to do. And so he's like, this is the thing that we're going to do. And they're like, that's against the procedure. And he was like, no, that's the thing we're going to do. And it kept getting him in trouble. A couple of times he had his military rank demoted because he got into arguments with higher level officers. But in every single one of those stories, he always comes out on top because every single time he was right. He was an incredible doctor and actually saved the life of a high-ranking British lord and became a friend of this man's family for the rest of his life. He also performed one of the first C-sections in which both the mother and the child survived. So this is a man with incredible medical knowledge, incredible tenacity for creating change, and an incredible belief that everybody should have access to good quality medical care, no matter who they were. Indeed. Indeed. So after his posting in South Africa, he was posted to the colony of St. Helena, to Trinidad, and to Malta. On those postings, he was given the rank of Principal Medical Officer, which is a fairly high rank in the British military. And his last posting is in my town, in Montreal, in Quebec, in Canada. And he moved there in 1857, and he was given the rank of Inspector General of Hospitals, which is the highest rank you can have as a medical officer in the British military. Later on, having gotten sick, he returned to England, and after he had died, folks made a pretty astounding discovery. In spite of his insistence that after his death, he be buried in the clothes that he died in. Nonetheless, it was discovered that Dr. James Barry did not have the body that folks expected from a British military officer. After he died, the woman who laid out his body discovered that his body looked a lot more like what you'd expect a woman's body to look like. This is a secret that he and his family had concealed over his entire lifetime when trans care was not available. All he had the ability to do was to live as a man in British society. It was a fact that he took great pains to conceal. And it was a fact that even at times when it could have prevented him from being court-martialed, he never revealed. So, can we say for certain that in this time now, when the language and the access to medical care would have meant that Dr. Barry could have publicly identified as a trans man? We can't say. He has died. He's not left us any record that says what he would have thought about how we think about gender now. But these are the things that we do know about him. He exclusively referred to himself as a man. He took great pains to conceal what his body might have looked like. And as I said before, specifically requested that he be buried in the clothes that he died in, so that no one would ever see his body. So, though we can't say for certain what he might have thought of himself, I personally feel I can claim Dr. Barry as a trans ancestor. Because for me, his tenacity is part of who he was as a person, and I am sure it is also part of what made him stick to his guns about his gender. And that's really inspiring to me. And it's also important to me that we remember that the idea that people might have a different idea of their gender than what is assigned to them at birth is not a new idea. This is not something that we figured out about 30 years ago when you first started maybe hearing about it. This is something that in 1812 somebody was dealing with. And though the struggles that I have to deal with as a trans person are far and away not the same things that Dr. Barry had to deal with, nonetheless, the question of who I tell about who I am is central to my existence. Who I tell about who I am and what I need and how I get my needs met is a struggle that continues now, that Dr. Barry experienced and that I also experience as a trans person. And frankly, it's something that we all experience, no matter what our gender identity is. Whether we identify as trans or as cis, the things that we tell other people about ourselves is one of the most important questions that we ever have to answer as people. So I'm excited for all of you to get to learn more about our trans history. I assume USian trans history a little bit more? Yeah, okay, sounds good. So I'm glad to have brought your CanCon for this morning. And I'm gonna pass it over to the rest of the worship team. Oh, maybe to Katie, who's coming up right now.
Thank you, Catherine. And that reminder that when we do the work to think about our identity and articulate that and be brave about it, that we work to liberate everyone. And we really push that forward. And it's amazing. And we have these amazing ancestors to stand with and who walk with us. Thank you. Just a reminder that you are all so very, very powerful and so, so very loved.
Thank you. Tikitaki?
That is my cue. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of a audible into this. And speaking of transgender history, this is a song that's performed by an artist named Ezra Furman. And she just released her latest album yesterday. You may know her if you've ever seen the Netflix show Sex Education. She's the person who scores that show. So actually going to play a song from that, at least as best as I can. And we're gonna have fun with the looper, so this will be interesting. I wake up early to get things started. I do my makeup and I do my hair. I practice walking and speaking softly, so it looks easy as if I don't care. Bad days, I take it slowly. On good days, I'm up and out in an hour. The past is over, it's just behind me. It's getting closer, but it holds no power. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates me. Living somewhere nobody goes to, speaking in a language that nobody talks. A window broken, a cold wind blows through my soul, a series of electrical shocks. A failed equation, a hypothetic, a woman standing but constructed to fall, existing as an minimalism, or just barely as a woman at all. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to show that it devastates. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they're saying about me.
Thank you so much, Brand. Thank you. It is time when we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it is good to share, to support each other, and to connect. Folks on Zoom, please feel free to enter any joys and sorrows into the chat, putting your name at the beginning. Those of you here in person, the joys and sorrows cards were at the front table for next week. And if you have something important to share, I have a few of, I don't have any of them from us, do I? Okay. All right. Let us take a deep breath while we create space for the joys and sorrows of a community. I'd like to send our thoughts out to the victims of war in the Ukraine as we pass the 6-month mark. A joy and a sorrow from Mary McManus. I finally got to move into my new dorm. However, 2 of my roommates have COVID right now, but they're in a separate room and everyone else is negative, so there has been some careful socializing after a long summer. And we have a joy from John La Barbera. We are recovering nicely from COVID. John tested negative yesterday. Natasha and Felix certainly won't be far behind. Plus, today is the 11th anniversary of John and Natasha's first date. And I'd like to wish my mother and father's oldest son, Samuel, a happy 66th birthday on Friday, September the 2nd. 66 years old. Oh. Sending hearts to one another from Zoom people to in-person people and vice versa. So can we? I invite you to a time of meditation and prayer. Center yourselves, put your feet on the floor if you wish, to settle in place, and to take a few collective deep breaths. Amen, blessed be, and Ashe.
This is a song I wrote. It's called Tikitaki. In a few moments, Blake is going to be sharing some history of transgender people. And this song is based off of an old Washington Square folk song called Little Boxes. If you ever watched the show Weeds, this is the theme song. So this is my version of this about just not fitting in those little boxes. Now you see me, now you don't. But you can't see past your own nose. The world is changing, but you can't cope. Put out to pasture by your own limited scope of reality. Well, I'm not going anywhere. Took me way too long to place my bets right here, to build a space where I can learn to love me for me, not a face, just finally who I was born to be. And I don't want to live inside the lines you drawn for me, and I don't fit inside your little box built to ticky-tacky. No, I can't conform to your cautionary tale, 'cause I'm doing swell. Just trying to do me. You say you know me, but you don't. You say you hear me, but you won't know. Can't be bothered to walk a mile here in my shoes, 'cause my feet don't step where you want them to. And maybe it's time I just tune you out. Stop giving a damn and just live out loud. 'Cause I try to focus on the things we've got in common, but sometimes I think that the drama's all you've ever wanted. And I don't want to live inside the lines you drawn for me, and I can't fit inside little box built to ticky-tacky. No, I can't conform to your cautionary tale, 'cause I'm doing swell. Just trying to do me, complaining and moaning about how I make you feel so uncomfortable, bitching and groaning about how I should just fall in line. You do you vibe. And I don't want to live inside the lines you drawn for me, and I don't fit inside your little box built to ticky-tacky. No, I can't conform to your cautionary tale, 'cause I'm doing swell. Yeah, I'm doing swell. And I don't want to live inside the lines you drawn for me, and I don't fit inside your little box built of ticky-tacky. No, I can't conform to your cautionary tale, 'cause I'm doing swell. Just trying to do me.
Think about what you think about. Professor John Anye Lockhart. The first person to introduce me to the concept of critical thinking was Professor John Anye Lockhart. His life's philosophy was the West African principle of Sankofa, which means you don't know where you are going if you don't know where you've been. I had the pleasure of introducing trade unionists to Professor Lockhart. He was a renowned artist specializing in murals that are located at locations throughout America, as well as being a professor in African American Studies at the University of Michigan and Washtenaw Community College in Ann Arbor, Michigan. As we would sit mesmerized by both his stature and his talent that surrounded us by his powerful Continuum mural at Wayne State University's Manoogian Hall, he would ask us to think about what you think about. In the moment, I was cool, calm, and confused as he broke it down to us. No matter what our belief system, no matter what our values, if we are incongruent in how we present ourselves to the world, it will manifest itself in one way or another. We are in the process of restarting and recommitting ourselves to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix's Our Whole program. Once I realized that sharing knowledge based on values, relationships, communication, health, and sexuality to our youth, that the crux of the program is encouraging and allowing our young people the chance to hone their critical thinking skills and to take these enhanced abilities out into the world that they create, they build, they share, they inhabit. Critical thinking is one of the most impactful practices that I've integrated into my facilitator's toolbox. And I am always enamored of different perspectives on this important theory. I would like to thank Blake for affording me the opportunity to remember my life lessons from Professor Lockhart and to think about the reverberations of his influence in my life, and thank UUCP for affording me the opportunity to share knowledge with our OWL students.
Good morning. Y'all, I have to admit I am excited and nervous. I have not spoken in this context in quite a few years, so if I forget how to speak and I just start making Muppet noises for a while, please just go along with it and agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. As we've talked a little bit about already this morning, the idea of transgender identities and the idea of critical thinking, as I was considering that in preparation for this Sunday, it really brought a lot back to me that I hadn't thought about in a while. I want us to think of critical thinking this morning as an important element of what we do in a way that we can remove a little bit of our own perspective whenever we're talking about something that we want to think about a little bit more deeply. When we apply this to transgender identities and history, we open up some incredible doors to our past, and we can see some amazing things that people did and the way people represented themselves in the past. Now, to begin, I couldn't quite figure out exactly the best place to start. The reason why is if you look at any part of history and you really start to dig, you will find gender diversity. You will find gender queer identities spread throughout all times and all people. But I wanted to start specifically at a place that we may relate to a little bit more. I wanted to start with the idea, or rather the events that happened whenever colonization impacted the Americas during the 1500s and 1600s. This is one of the first examples that we see, or I'd say first example, it's one of the best examples that we can see of how these ideas clashed and were very, detrimental to one another at the time. Two-spirit people, as they're known among Native communities, are often seen as important individuals. These individuals represent gender out of from a bigger perspective than just a binary perspective. An individual known as Spotted Eagle from the White Mountain Apache tribe spoke in the 1940s of how they were carted away and hidden by their community because of their two-spirit identity. They were hidden because at this point the schools had started to come into their community, the American schools, and had started to kind of push these views on Spotted Eagle and others. So to protect this individual, they were removed from the community and hidden away so that they could continue to grow and develop as the community saw fit and not as this opposing force saw fit. But we see these trans people, or trans holy people, showing up in every culture that we look at throughout history. During colonization in the 16th century, we see opposition to transgendered and genderqueer identities. Antonio de la Calancha writes about Balboa's expeditions in the 16th century. And in this, he writes that when Balboa saw men dressed like women, and Balboa learnt that they were sodomites, he threw the king and 40 others to be eaten by his dogs. These are tough words, but I thought it was important to share the words that Calancha had written down. As soon as Balboa saw these other identities, he found it appropriate to meet it with resistance. But why is that? I can't help but wonder. Why would that be someone's reaction to seeing a different gender representation in front of them? I want to read this next line that Calancha wrote, and I want to apologize ahead of time because it sounds so satirical that I almost want to laugh. You know, as somebody who reads satirical papers all the time in our modern culture, right? We hear lines like this and we almost want to laugh. But the reality is this was something that was said in all seriousness. Calancha went on to describe Balboa's actions as a fine action of an honorable and Catholic Spaniard. Balboa did this because he thought it was the right thing, the appropriate thing. We look through history and we see that always the ideas of, colonialization and capitalism in opposition to gender diversity and gender queerness, in opposition to those structures that existed long before people like Balboa came to those areas. Frederick Engels proposed that this power started with the consolidation of goods. In his theory, he theorizes that once individuals were able to consolidate goods such as dried meats, cheeses, and other things, that they were able to consolidate power, and this led to the first basis of gender oppression. It's really heartbreaking for me to realize that cheese is mentioned as a specific resource used. I've loved cheese my whole life, and I feel so betrayed. It's also important to note that during this time, individual cultures had their own ways of identifying, labeling, and viewing this. Our modern language is fairly new when it comes to transgender and genderqueer identities. The words that we use today didn't always exist. But also during this time, we didn't just see colonization clashing with genderqueer identities and ideas. We see genderqueer identities and ideals being used as resistance during colonization. Someone who I found very interesting to look into their story and study more about them was Joan of Arc. I don't know if you've read much about this individual or what their life was like, but I found it very fascinating. Maybe you're familiar with some of the Hollywood representations and depictions of this young woman who feels called to lead and leads during the French, leads during the 100-Year War, serving for the French. And that is certainly true, but there's so much more to that. Joan of Arc was eventually put to death for the accused crime of cross-dressing. See, when Joan of Arc rose to fame and notoriety during their life, during the 100-Year War, they embodied something that was very powerful, something that was very dynamic, something that was somewhat of an issue for the powers that be. They didn't really like it. She came from the area of Lorraine, which was known by the church at the time to be a very pagan and heathen land where people held on to the old traditions and wouldn't accept the new modern ways of the church. When she was captured by the English, they used slurs to denounce her. They used titles that would roughly translate to man, woman, or masculine woman. These were to, These slurs were to bring her pain, but were also to indicate that her identity and expression did not match what they saw. When Joan of Arc was put to death, the Catholic Church made a point to prove her gender identity by parading her body around for the people to see. This isn't the only example, though, during these time periods. Another example that I found absolutely incredible and inspiring was the example of a man by the name of Thomas Reeves. Thomas Reeves is given credit as being one of the very first Rebeccas of the of the group Rebecca and Her Daughters. Rebecca and Her Daughters are this incredible, exciting group of revolutionaries who would dress in drag and go out and tear down symbols of oppression in their community. They would do things like get rid of toll booths so that people could pass and take their produce to market to sell. They would do things like get rid of governors' homes and move and remove these structures that had been placed there that represented the powers that were keeping them down. It's interesting that they dressed in drag to do this. Thomas Reeves is given credit as the first Rebecca. Thomas Reeves was a man. There's no indication that he identified as a woman, but still he donned this persona of Rebecca to step out and and set an example for those who followed him, that they did not want to continue to suffer under these systems that were in place. Some say that they were using the drag as a costume. They were using these long dresses and straw wigs, but I would dare to say that long dresses and straw wigs are not very good costumes. I don't think these people suddenly became invisible when they donned this. I think they were hearkening back to something that they found power and authority in the same way that Joan of Arc came from this area known as Lorraine, this area that had so much to do with following the customs of the Gentiles and the heathens. I think Rebecca and Her Daughters were trying to do the same thing. We're trying to inspire and encourage the people by donning this costume, by donning this representation of gender queerness. Another incredible example during this time that I found that really inspired me and showed me that there were genderqueer people who were having successful lives during this time. Maybe you're familiar with General Pulaski, the leader of the cavalry during the Revolutionary War. Well, within the past decade, there have been a lot of discoveries about General Pulaski, including that the potential of an intersex identity. General Pulaski being a short man, being someone whose life was somewhat shrouded in privacy. The family had a private baptism when he was born versus a public baptism at the church so that he could have some notoriety in that. Oh, thank you. Someone's watching out for me. General Pulaski was able to have a successful life and was able to be an important and revolutionary leader during this time and do incredible things, but the reality is his gender identity did not match the gender that somebody might place on him from a different perspective. General Pulaski is a great example that shows that there were individuals other than the ones that we have represented who existed at this time with revolutionary ideas. In modern times, we've seen a rise in medical, social, and political recognition of trans individuals. Around the same time that modern medicine was becoming more and more what it is today, there was gender-affirming healthcare growing alongside that. There were individuals who were trying to describe it, trying to put terms to it. Karl Heinrich Urix coined the term earnings to describe a female soul enclosed in a male body. This was the first instance of modern language giving label and definition to transgender identities, and this happened in 1864. For a little bit more context, Webster's Dictionary came out in September of 1847. What's interesting about that is it marked a new way that we looked at defining language, a new way that we were going to continue to update it, right, be on top of it. Before that, the last English dictionary came from 1604, had never been updated. So as we are moving into a time of updating our language, keeping it fresh, keeping us up to date, we're also including labels and identities that fall under the transgender umbrella. It's also during this time that Kurt Benny first coined the term homosexual while in correspondence with Ulrichs. And this happened in 1869. Their work led for others to continue along this journey. An instance of this is Magnus Hirschfeld. Magnus Hirschfeld coined the term transvestite, and he posited that there were roughly 43 million gender representations or identities. Essentially, one for each person on Earth. Hirschfeld identified as gay man and did a lot of queer activism. He engaged in international speaking tours, was a founding member of the Scientific Humanitarian Committee, and took part in writing and producing the first queer film, Different from the Others. He also opened an institute of sexual research, which was burned in 1933 by the Nazis. What's interesting about this research facility that he opened is that they were practicing gender-affirming healthcare over a century ago. They were attempting and having some success with uterine transplants, with different things like that that we still haven't even gone back to yet with modern medicine. Thanks to the destruction of his institute by the Nazi Party, we can definitively see where transgender healthcare has been delayed by so much time. When Hirschfeld, after his clinic was destroyed, he later went to France, where he passed away 2 years later. During this time, we didn't just see medical and psychological advances in transgender identities. We also saw social representations that began to grow. During this time, we had the first favorable example of someone who was looked at favorably by the public. Christine Jorgensen, who transitioned in the 1950s, made headlines such as From GI to Bombshell. Christine transitioned after serving in World War II and became very popular in media at the time. Though her life did involve tragedy, and I don't want to underplay that at all, I think it's still incredible that even at this time in the 50s, there were still favorable, positive things written about Christine. We also see we also see political activism starting at this time. Maybe you've heard of Marsha P. Johnson, the trans woman who is accredited with throwing the first brick at Stonewall, an event that's credited with starting the queer liberation movement. But did you know that that wasn't the first gender-based riot in the US? No, there was a different one. In May of 1959, in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco, specifically at Cooper Donut, there was a riot that started as the police were harassing people there. See, Cooper Donut was located between two queer bars in the San Francisco area in the Tenderloin district. And the cops would frequently go to Cooper Donut late at night to harass the patrons there. It was well known that there were a lot of trans individuals as well as individuals of other queer identities who would hang out there late at night. The police would ask for things like identity. They would try their best to create a reason for these individuals to become arrested. Well, after many times of this happening, that night in May of 1959, the people fought back. Resistance started with donuts. It's true, they threw donuts. I think Marsha P. got the note and decided to use bricks the next time. But after that, the brawl moved into the streets, and it was said to have lasted for the rest of the weekend. It's not something that the San Francisco Police Department chronicled that well at the time. No one wants to talk about the fight with donuts that lasted 2 weeks. But during this time, we also see so much overlap with the labor and civil rights movements of this era. Not only during this time do we see more and more people pushing for the social and political advancement of trans people, unfortunately, we've also seen an opposite response. We've seen so many people move to discredit gender-expansive identities. Conservative groups and individuals have moved to delegitimize trans identities by misrepresenting trans goals and narratives. Maybe you've heard the narrative lately that queer people in general, but particularly trans people as well, are guilty of wanting to groom children, of wanting to do things that are terrible and hurtful to the community around us. There's also a rise in the stigmatization of mental illness associated with transgender identities. The World Health Organization at one point did include gender dysphoria as a mental illness. It no longer does because they've realized that that wasn't the case, that wasn't beneficial. And we also see movements like TERF movements on the rise, more and more people jumping into this idea that gender expansive identities are somehow inappropriate or somehow unnatural. I know this has been a very brief skimming of the top layer. There's so much more to this. I hope we were able to see a little bit of a narrative thread go all the way through. But as we wrap up this morning, and as I want to encourage people to think about their identity, how you feel, how you identify, what you feel like best represents you. As we close out on that, I want to read the transcript of the incident with Rebecca and her daughters. Now, I do want to point out that when Rebecca and her daughters, this group did their why am I drawing a blank right now? When they did they did the riots that they were involved in, when they were involved in this resistance, they had an element of theater with it. Now, I'm not saying that all the people who were involved in this riot were of a queer identity, but the idea of a group of people getting together in drag to do theater for political revolution, it sounds like a very queer idea to me, but in the best of ways. But Rebecca starts by saying this, as they come to the road, to whatever's in their way, right? The toll booth, the gates that have been placed there to keep them from going to the city to do the things that they need to do to survive. Rebecca states, "What is this, my children? There's something in my way. I cannot go on." The rioters respond, "What is it, Mother Rebecca? Nothing should stand in your way." Rebecca responds, "I do not know, my children. I am old and cannot see well." Rioters respond, "Shall we come and move it out of your way, Mother Rebecca?" Rebecca responds, "Wait, it feels like a big gate put across the road to stop your old mother." The rioters respond, "We will break it down, Mother. Nothing stands in your way." Rebecca responds back, "Perhaps it will open, oh my dear children. It is locked and bolted. What can be done?" "It must be taken down, Mother. You and your children must be able to pass." And finally, Rebecca responds, "Off with it then, my children." I want us to consider that. Is there any structure in our life, any structure that we have, maybe we've placed there, maybe somebody else has placed it in front of us, that's preventing us from being the people that we want to be? If so, I just want to encourage you with the same words that Rebecca ended her discourse with. Off with it then, my children.
I just want to say while Bryn is plugging in that Sam said in his introduction that this was your first time in our pulpit, and I hope it will not be your last. So wonderful to hear you, Blake. Really, yeah, thank you. And I get to join Bryn on this last one.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to bring that trombone over here? Speaking of things standing in our ways, I was raised in a very religious household, and I joined the Army when I was young and dumb. Thanks. It wasn't that great. I went AWOL And when I went AWOL, I ended up in Austin, Texas, where I was dragged to a dive bar for what I thought was just cheap drinks, and turned out to be a drag show with a Dolly Parton drag queen. So this is a song that's actually coming up on my album I'll be releasing soon. You can find the video on YouTube. It's really cool. It's stop motion animation. It took my friend and I like a month and a half to do. So please go find it. Anyways, this is called Dolly Parton Drag Queen. You're gonna play with me? Sweet. I was 21 and dumb, sitting on my thumb in a queer dive bar in Austin, Texas. Cracking jokes about steers and queers and drinking Lone Star beer and questioning my orientation. Thought I was there for karaoke, cheap ass drinks and low key smoking, but instead my whole life was about to change. Platinum wig and sequin dress made me think about gender in a whole new way. Well, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. She taught me there's more to see than what hangs between your thighs. Yeah, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. Made me reconsider my whole life. Yeah. She sang Jolene, why you gotta take my man? Boy, that got me thinking. I said, what makes this man worth a damn? Hell, what makes a man? Boy, that got me drinking. And even though it took me 15 years, 2 weddings, 3 kids, and all these tears, well, you know that night it changed my life. Cause I knew that even then I was not the man I wished I was deep down inside. And why was I wishing I was anyways? I don't know. Well, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. She taught me there's more to see than what hangs between your thighs. Yeah, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. Made me reconsider my whole life. Come on, play that horn. I want to hear more. Oh, so nice. Well, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. Taught me there's more to see than what hangs between your thighs. Yeah, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. Made me reconsider my whole life. Yeah, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. Taught me there's more to see than what hangs between your thighs. Yeah, I owe everything to a Dolly Parton drag queen. Made me reconsider my whole life.
Thank you again for that, Bren. After service today, you're welcome to stay and chat, either unmasked on the patio or inside and masked in the Johnson room. Feel free to go wherever you feel most comfortable. Children and families are welcome to meet Katie in the Grove, which I believe is right over here. Yes. We'll show you how to get there. Online folks, we invite you to online coffee hour to also discuss the service. The link is in Compass, the website, and the chat. I think I moved too far. Sam to the rescue. Right, okay. I'm finally back. Technology, right? Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being with us here today. Go in love, go in peace.